Bubble, hi, hello. This is Patricia from the future. I'm actually recording this intro very last in the collection of clips that you're about to see. Like I said in the previous episode, it's been just the most incredibly busy last couple of weeks. There has been a lot going on. I'm not going to say heaps of knitting, some knitting, but more knitting adjacent things, but you'll hear about that in a bit. This video is going to be broken up into two bits. First bit's going to be just what's going on with me. We'll be covering the Wool Festival, or the Yarn Festival that we went to a couple of weeks ago, and then just some other festivals I've been to. And the second half of this video is going to be dedicated to Stephen West's MCAL for this year. So if you're not interested in that, I'll let you know when you can drop off later on. So a few weeks back now, we went to Fiberfest, which is a little yarny festival that's held by the New South Wales Knitting Guild here in Sydney. So a bunch of us got together, a bunch of the YouTubers, or a bunch of the podcasters that you might already know of, all went. It was really great. So great that I actually didn't get that much footage, but what I did get, I'll put on screen. There was just so much yarn. Everything was so beautiful. All of these local dyers and producers were there. Our friend Ben got this really cool spinning kit with a spindle that I've never seen before. It had a really tiny disc. It was super cute. That's really funky. I've never seen anything like that before.
Sorry. This is amazing.
Also, the box is stunning. It's so nice.
Is that a kit? So, where is that? Okay.
Yay, thank you. And like I said, I didn't really vlog anything, but if you did want to see what the day was like, Ira, Cookie Knits, did an awesome video kind of vlogging her experience around Fiberfest.
I just hit puberty.
Yay! So I'll leave a link to that down below. I had a plan wanting to go in into a vlog, but I ended up kind of getting there, and it was a first time meeting a couple of people. Linda from Wool Make This Work was there, and that was the first time we had met as well. So we're just going around talking to people and catching up with people who I don't really get to see that often. Kind of took up all of my time. I don't really regret not vlogging because, I don't know, it just felt really wholesome to be meeting and hanging out with all these people who, share my love of knitting and yarn and all that kind of thing. So I am sorry, but also this is to be expected. So just before I forget, I did make some purchases at Fiberfest this year, but not too many. I was actually kind of overwhelmed because there was so much stuff. I wanted to kind of go in with a plan and have all of these patterns in mind that I would be looking for yarn for while I was there, and that didn't happen. I did have these things in mind though and got them, so that's cool. So this is Mel 3 Cats Yarns Merino Linen. These are 4-ply 90% superwash merino and 10% linen in the colour lilac. So pretty. I kind of wish that I got more while I was there. I also got her collaboration with 11T1 Windmills, and they did this really beautiful, Mel did this really beautiful skein of, just look at the sparkle. Are you kidding? Get out of here. And this is 70% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and 5% stellina. Beautiful. This was in a set that also came with an adorable stitch marker set from 11T1 Windmills. A little cat and a little cauldron, super adorbs. And also while we were there, Lisa was doing these little stitch stoppers for your needles. So you pop them on the top of your needles and they stop stitches from sliding off, which I've already used and has been really awesome. I'm trying to do this thing lately where I am buying yarn and immediately, if not already, having a pattern in mind for it. And I think that as soon as I saw this one by Mel, I was like, okay, merino linen hopefully is going to be cooler than 100% merino. So maybe I could do a summer top. And then I thought, oh, I've been watching a bunch of Heather and Hops lately, and I really like her color Geldana, which I thought would be really cute in these colors. So that's what I've got in mind for this. If not, I will definitely use it for any summer top. I think that this color is super springtime. My husband and I went to a Filipino cultural festival called Baskot here in Sydney Harbour, which was really nice. We went super duper early and saw like a parade, which was interesting. You might see on the screen this little passport brother just walking along in the parade. And we had a really lovely day out. Probably the reason why I wanted to bring this one up is because you may see my my summer noct shawl in the footage here. I think the true testament of a good knit is just wearing it all the time. As soon as it's off the needles, as soon as it's off the blocking boards, just wearing it all the time. And I have been wearing this shawl all the time. It has been just an immediate like staple in my wardrobe. It kind of is a really good color for spring. I'm really enjoying the kind of like fresh, like minty green vibes. I didn't actually know that this festival in particular was like a regular, or like a, how do I say this? I grew up going to this festival every year, and like, you know, we would do the traditional dances, and like the kids would perform, and we would have food and all that kind of good like cultural festival stuff. We used to call it fiesta, but I'm learning that this is actually the Philippine Christmas festival. Filipinos celebrate Christmas for all of the Burr months. So September, October, November, December, that's a really long time to celebrate Christmas, but I guess that we're just sort of a happy, jolly people. And then during the week we had a friend come over, and she was like, I ordered you a birthday present, but it took like ages to come, and it's here now, and I really wanted to give it to you in person because I want to see. Sorry for my cat. And she got me the bloody knitting light thing. Ooh. I've been using this a ton, actually. It's really good for using darker yarns. I'm working on something right now that I don't really want to talk about because I don't think I'm going to continue on with it, for now at least, but like I'm using a very dark yarn, and this, and it's not even just a dark yarn, it's mohair. So the stitch definition is impossible, but this has made it so much easier. I've always kind of thought that these were kind of dorky, to be honest. But now that I've used one, I have been converted. Mabuhay. Today is, God, what day? Oh my gosh, it's Friday. Today's Friday. It's like 11:30 in the morning. My friend has just messaged me to say that she is coming over at 2 o'clock to pick up a gift, or like to drop off a gift, I mean. But she'll also be picking up a gift, because actually I think I'm going to use the opportunity to pass on some of my yarn to her. I am moving interstate in a couple of months, which means that I need to do some serious downsizing. And I think part of that will be cutting down on the yarn that I know I'm not going to use. And there is a bunch of it. There's a bunch of like acrylic that I'm not going to use. Not that I have anything against acrylic. I think that there's a time and a place for it. I'm not going to shame anyone for having it or using it, but personally I don't think that it fills my needs. I thought I would take you along with me because I know I really like watching like cleaning videos and organization videos on YouTube, so if this is your jam, hi, we can be friends. I wasn't filming that whole time! Fuck! Hello, we're in the office. This is the second time I'm recording this because I'm a dum-dum, but this is where the bulk of my yarn is, and I'm just going to let you know in advance it's not very tidy because I've made a lot of purchases recently, to be honest. Also receiving a lot of yarn for birthdays. Fiberfest was last week. She's Crafty Market is next week. It's probably the best time to be doing a de-stash, to be honest, but we're here to clean, we're here to organize. The spot is actually right next to my desk. When I take work meetings and everything, you can see the shelf in the background, which I think is really funny. But that's my work desk, oops, and my Swift. That's my work desk and my Swift. And that's my yarn shelf. So I'll do the full reveal now. Ta-da! This used to be just for stationery and for drawing things and for writing things. Actually, all that stuff is still down there on the bottom shelf. Don't look, it's messy. Here I've got my sewing machine that doesn't get used enough because I'm too scared to sew. The immediate yarns that I want to use straight away usually go up here where I can see them all the time and they can guilt trip me for not touching them. Second shelf is leftover yarns from projects. I've also got a bunch there, a huge like male sweater quantity that I'm going to use to make a sweater for Josh later. And then at the bottom is, I guess, my crochet intended stash. Maybe not all of it, some of it. We'll go through it in detail. Up the top is my expensive stuff. So yeah, let's do this. Alrighty, here is everything laid out, and it's a lot. To be honest, it is more, well, it's not actually more than I expected. I've known for a long time that there's been a lot, and I've done the bad, the naughty, and kind of put them out of sight, out of mind, which is probably not great. This is a lot of yarn. This is probably enough yarn to be someone's complete stash. I'm not really proud of that, and I'm really glad that, like, if my friend doesn't want them, I'm definitely going to donate them to charity, so that at least they can be used by someone who actually wants to use them or enjoys their company or makes happy. Yes, feeling kind of bad. That being said, that there are a couple of things here which at some point in time I did have a plan for, and then it didn't work out for one reason or another, and then there are some things in here that are remnants of stuff that I have already made. So I'm going to preface this with the fact that when I first started knitting, I definitely didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to calculate how much yarn I needed. I kind of just bought it, and I bought it in huge amounts, and then occasionally bought far too little, and so I'll highlight those as we go. These are remnants. This is from Josh's single malt sweater. That's from Spotlight. Most of this is acrylic. A lot of these acrylic things were intended to be like blanket or homewares. So for example, these 4 skeins here, plus I think this blue one and that green one was supposed to become, oh, and this tealy one was supposed to become a blanket. I got the yarn, and this is Red Heart Fashion Soft. This is actually super nice. It feels really good. It looks good. It's smooth. It's soft. It's super nice, and that's the same, I think, as this one here. They feel incredibly different to this, which is Make a Double Knitting in DK. I think this is like the Lincraft store brand. It actually feels kind of gross. You know how sometimes acrylic can feel sticky? That's kind of what this feels like. I'm sure that if you washed it, it would change, but like I tried working with it and I didn't like it. The other thing that I should say is that all of this acrylic that I bought and haven't used was intended to be crocheted. I don't like knitting with acrylic. Good example of that here, I've got a couple of balls of Ferris Wheel by Lion Brand, which I think is actually like
a pretty cute yarn. One of the very first projects I wanted to make was basically anything Shifty by Andrea Mowry, and I thought that this would be a really good dupe for Spin Cycle, because I did look up Spin Cycle. I had no idea what it was at the time, and I was like, oh my god, that's so expensive, there's no way. And I'm still actually like that, but I thought this was a good dupe because they've got, you know, really interesting, cool color changes. Let me turn up the brightness so you can see. They've got like kind of like stranded, spun together vibe, kind of like how Spin Cycle does their yarns. Same with this one here. Can you see that? Very pretty. I ditched it because I didn't like the feel of knitting. This is how I figured out that I didn't want to knit with acrylic. So I tried to crochet something with it instead. I started this like chevron something. I think this was supposed to be a blanket, and then promptly ditched it because it wasn't really serving me at the time. So yeah, I think that these skeins are actually still really pretty, and like I think they're 100% acrylic. Yeah. For an 100% acrylic skein, they're actually like, they feel quite woolly. They're not too bad. But these I think would get super. These are bamboo cotton skeins. I think they're 50-50. Wait, no, they're not. 70% bamboo, 30% cotton from Spotlight. These are hella cheap. You can get these on sale when they go on sale for like $2 something each. The only thing is that recommended needle size 4.5 mil. So I'm going to call this probably a DK. It actually doesn't say, which I hate it when they do that. I find that a lot with, like, in particular Australian, like, commercial yarns. I don't know why they don't list all of the information on the bottle. Anyway, I used this ages and ages and ages ago to make a camisole number 4 because I was like, okay, cotton bamboo should be light, should be drapey. I love the feel of it. It's very like smooth and silky and soft. It ended up being so heavy that it weighed itself down and misshapen. How do I say this? And misshaped itself because it was so heavy, and it was also very uncomfortable to wear. And so I kind of like, I don't even know where that top is now. It's been a couple of years. Bamboo is ridiculously heavy. I think that this yarn would be much better suited to homeware if you're going to use it at like a kind of knitted fabric gauge. The second example of that is, these are Kubu by Lion Brand, which actually is like quite a stunning yarn. I think this is in their tan color. So I think this is also a cotton bamboo blend, if not 100% bamboo. I bought this again very, very early on in my fibre career because I wanted to make, I can't remember the name of the top, but I'll put it on screen, by 2 of 1s. And actually I did make it, which is why these skeins are all balled up. But the problem was the garment was so heavy that it was distorting. And not only was it distorting, it looked really stupid on me. I'll put a picture up. It was uncomfortable to wear, even though like on the model it looked hella cute. I might have been using perhaps the wrong needle for, like, I wasn't at the time, as you guys know, because it was a very recent development. I didn't know how gauge affected a garment, and so there might have been a whole list of things that were incorrect about that top, but I still think that the amount of this yarn that's needed to create that top is a lot, and to the point where it makes it too heavy. So I am going to try and recrochet that, but probably, I don't know, probably in a cotton or something else. I don't know, but this yarn was not it. I think that this would be fine in like a boxy top or something that didn't need so much fabric, but that top that I made, it was way too much. It was way too heavy. Wasn't really a fan. This one here is Fabio Costo. This is, again, I think one of the Lincraft brands. And sorry, I should have mentioned before, Lincraft and Spotlight are like the local versions of like Michael's in America, or like retail craft stores where like they have everything, but not everything is really great quality. This is 70% wool, 30% alpaca, which I was actually surprised to find. at a retail store. That all being said, like, it is soft, it's a nice yarn, but it's missing a certain something. It doesn't have the stickiness of yarn and doesn't have like the supreme softness of alpaca. And like a 30-70 blend I would expect to feel different. So I actually made a top out of this. I think it's called, oh my god, I can't remember the name. I'll put it up on screen. In the middle is all of the acrylic that my neighbors gave me. So yeah. And then on the far side over here, this is some Lion brand Heartland. I see a lot of crocheters on Instagram using this yarn, and I thought I would get my hands on it, but like, I don't know if like I picked the wrong colorways or anything, but this like, it's shiny. It's super duper shiny. It's got, if you can see in like the individual ply, it's got like a silver strand plied with a black strand, and they seem to be like mild. So it's giving that kind of like oil slick effect. I couldn't really think of anything to make with it. So I'm kind of getting rid of it. Same thing with this skein, same Heartland skein, but like different color, and like that is a shiny bitch. Lastly, over here, you have probably noticed this huge pile of mohair. This is Hobby Diablo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh my god. One of the funniest things perhaps, and one of the quickest lessons I've ever made from knitting, is these are actually my leftovers. I made a no frills cardigan using these skeins. Maybe I bought like, I might have bought like 14 balls or something of this Diablo, and like, I can't believe I had this much left over. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but like, I could make like another 2 cardigans with this amount of mohair. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway, huge regrets. This is the grey colorway, and I tried to use it. I tried to use it to make a cardigan that was mohair held double, and if you've ever touched Diablo, let me just have a look at what we're made of here. So that is 30% mohair, 30% nylon, and 40% acrylic. It's sticky. It's quite sticky, and I don't know if it's because it's a little bit old, but it's not super soft. Certainly not the kind of feel that I would associate mohair with now, because I usually use closer to 100% mohair, if not a blend. I've spoken before about how I'm not the hugest fan, but I have used it in 2 garments, and both of those garments are kind of starting to show a real degradation in quality. Angle change, hello. Everything I've said about this yarn is incredibly personal to me. Just because I'm saying that like I don't like acrylic, or I don't like Hobby Diablo, doesn't mean that that won't be the right yarn for you. Like I said before, there is a use case for everything. I think that if you're someone who, for example, has a wool allergy or a mohair allergy, you should never ever 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 feel bad about having to use alternative products. Yes, in some instances, like say for acrylic, they're not exactly environmentally friendly, but if you literally can't wear wool, then I think that the environmental argument when it comes to kind of yarn snobbery is a really difficult one. There is no perfect answer. In a lot of the arguments that are raised even today, I think that like we're making people compromise in places that they shouldn't. Like, for example, my brother has really very incredibly severe eczema, to the point where like, and I'm very sorry, this is going to be graphic, but this is just the reality of it, like he is allergic to everything. Allergic to wool, allergic to grass, allergic to all that kind of thing. his skin flakes off, and in the summer he grows fungus in his crevices and in his inside elbow and his inside knee. And then in the winter he gets so dry that like his skin literally peels off and he has to take a steroid. And you know, he's very sensitive to the cold, but I'm not the eco warrior who's going to go and tell him to wear a cotton jumper when that's not warm enough. Like if he wants to wear, you know, something acrylic because it's the warmest thing that he has available to him within like a reasonable price range, I'm not going to shame him for that. Like, and I think that we should kind of look at each other in the same way. And I think the funniest thing is looking back at all this yarn, and I know that like I didn't buy more than half of it, actually. It was more than half of it was gifted to me. I don't necessarily regret making the purchasing decisions that I did at the time. This is actually really cathartic. I feel really good to like not have these. These were sitting in a drawer where I couldn't see them, and I knew that they were there, and I kept on telling myself in my head like, you've got to get rid of these somehow, like, and I'm finally doing it, and it feels really good. It feels like a huge weight has been lifted from my shoulders, and I'm really excited to kind of get focused and become a bit more streamlined with my stash. So yeah, see you later. And finally, last weekend, a lovely lady in the Discord gave me the tip off that there is I think they call the place like secondhand treasure or something along that line, like something like one man's treasure or something. Basically, it's kind of like a charity shop, but instead of doing just like clothes or homeware, they do everything. So we walked in and there was just like walls and walls and walls of just like, there's no other way to put it, stuff. They have a whole wall of like buttons, a whole wall of like little like wood bits and like Christmas stuff and like headphones and all this kind of random stuff. And I think that it's a really great place for like creatives, people who can kind of make that secondhand stuff and turn it into something useful. And so it would be a great place to look for some yarn. So I bought 4 cones. Was it 4? Yes. No. I bought 5 cones. 5 cones. Now, I am 99% sure that these are actually for weaving or from like textile mills. So here's the first one in this really beautiful burgundy color. There's no info on this one, but that definitely looks like a lace weight. I think I could pretty easily hold this one double or triple to meet fingering weight gauge. It is not super elastic like yarn. I have really been interested in weaving lately. Like I kind of want to get like a small table loom or something and start to weave some stuff, but I am moving in like a couple of weeks, and so adding new things to move is not the best idea. But I'm sure that when I get to Brisbane, that's probably the first thing I'm going to buy. Anyway, moving on. Same thing with this really beautiful like a greeny, like an ocean spray kind of color. Same thing where it's like definitely 2-ply, but I thought the color was really pretty. And then I got a very similar color in this like blue. I'm really bad at describing colors. This is kind of tealy almost. I think it looks more blue on camera. It's kind of in between blue and green in person. This cone was the most interesting one to me. So this one had more info than others. So this is Cashmillion. And I looked it up, and apparently this is synthetic cashmere. It is soft as heck. Super soft. Again, looks like about a lace weight. I really want to make, you know like cardigans that are kind of so thin that you can wear them as tops. I can see like a really cute cardigan in this color with like white pearl buttons. I think that would be really adorable. So this is probably the one I'm going to be able to use first. Also, it's so soft I can't
help myself. And the last one, and this one doesn't have any info on it either, but this is like a cute little, like, almost peach, like baby pink. This one is definitely a yarn. It has the, like, it has a little bit of like loft to it. I think that this could pass for like a three ply. I need to get one of those tools where you can figure it out by wrapping it around. I also got a really cute sewing pattern, and like there was a wall of sewing patterns. So many, like almost like intimidating how many there were. And so I kind of dug through, saw one I liked, and then just walked away because I was like, I really don't want to spend hours here. And also I still don't know how to sew. So it's a bit optimistic. Me thinking that I could just pick up as many as I wanted and make them. But yeah, all of these cones, even these big boys, were only $2 each. And like, you know, I looked at them and I was kind of like, oh, some of these are like definitely, some of these probably won't be the best to like knit with. Like these ones in particular, I need to test them out, but like they don't seem to be terribly, they don't have a lot of elastic to them at all. But then I was also like, at $2 each, I could just try. And if it doesn't work out, I can make something else out of it, or I can learn how to weave like I said that I would. We've been living in this house for like 2 years now. And I found out like 2 weeks ago that we actually live down the road from like the New South Wales Weavers and Spinners Guild. And I'm like really upset that like we've been here for so long and they are like right there, and I have not utilized them the entire time we're here, and now we're moving to a different bloody city, so great. Anyway, so to be frank, I haven't really knitted on anything except for the MCAL for the last month. I will go more into it in the second half of the video, but basically it was so much knitting that I really didn't have time to do anything else except for during Clue 3. Clue 3 was really nice and short, and I totally caught up within like a day. So in between those clues, I managed to finish my sienna shawl. I'll put up some better pictures on the screen here, as well as the designer's name, who I unfortunately can't remember right now. I'm really sorry. So this was done in Malabrigo Rios, in the colorway Valentina. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I had a little bit of drama trying to start this shawl, because the colors on the Malabrigo website are very, very, very different to what you receive in person. But we finally got there, and like this is a 10 ply shawl. It is squishy, and also very, very quick to knit. So I was able to get in the last, actually I think I knit quite a bit. I would have knit a whole skein's worth in between Clue 3 and Clue 4. So pretty happy about that. This is actually really perfect for the current weather here that we're having here in Sydney. It's been like hot in the sun, but the breeze has been really cold, and it's been like that for a couple of weeks now, which I actually don't mind because it's good exercise weather, it's good going out weather, and I can bring my shawls around and wear them and not overheat from like a sweater or anything. So, but yeah, at this point in time, it's been like a week since the MCAL finished, so I've been casting on things here and there, but I'm not really sure if I'm going to stick to anything just yet, so I'll introduce them to you next time. For now, we're going to jump into the second half of the video. If you're going to jump off here, that's cool. I appreciate you being here anyway. I hope that you have a fantastic month of knitting, and for everyone else, I'll see you in a second. Bye. The MCAL, twists and turns indeed. I really had high hopes for this one because this is my first Stephen West MCAL ever. I was really hyping it up and really getting on like the train, and even though I didn't like it, I don't really want to spend heaps of time just being negative, but to summarize my feelings, I think it's ugly and I didn't enjoy knitting it. Very unfortunate. I was at least expecting to like have a good time knitting it, but I think that a large part of me not enjoying it was that I didn't like the way that it looks, but we'll get to that later. This is what it looks like in all of its... Is glory the correct term? Probably not. I really regret the colours that I chose. And again, I think I've said this before, not that they're not beautiful, not that the yarn isn't fantastic. I'm almost regretting using such nice yarn for a project that I fucking hate. I think that the colours together, in the way that I've used them, not fantastic. I kind of feel like a banana in pajama, or like an old school police person. I know that they're not exactly supposed to be wearable, and this is the thing. Like, I think that I've seen a lot of podcasters be like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it's ugly." And I think that no. I think the general consensus is that it's ugly, but it's not supposed to be pretty. I think that what Stephen West is trying to do clearly is, you know, challenge fashion norms and do something that's a little bit out there and be a little bit different, and that's the whole point. So being ugly or being pretty was never the goal to begin with, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. It's on Netflix. That movie intentionally is supposed to make you very, very uncomfortable, and people will always come out of that movie saying, "Oh, like I didn't have a good time because like I felt really awkward." But that was the point. That was the point of the movie, and I think that similarly, the point of his shawls, like to challenge norms and to stand out and to be talked about. And I think in that way, he is very successful, and he has achieved essentially what he set out to achieve, which is a win. Good job. On top of that, like, thousands and thousands of people do this MCAL every year, even though so many people have decreed that they don't like the way they look. And so really Stephen is the real winner here. We can call it ugly as much as we want, and it actually doesn't actually matter. I learned a lot about myself doing this MCAL. I went in late. So I got into Clue 1 very, very late. I think I started around Monday. And my intention was to blog every step, and I didn't. And a large part of that is that it was a super crazy time for me at the time anyway, but also I was staying up until kind of crazy hours, way, way later than I would have, just trying to catch up. And this was something that I knew that I was going to do going in, and was kind of trying to prevent myself from doing. I was going very, very hard, knitting long hours, knitting late because I was busy during the day, and then not really having fun because I definitely turned it into a chore. But I was very much determined to have each clue finished before the next clue came out, and I didn't actually catch up until Clue 3, which was really bloody annoying because Clue 3 was very much the shortest clue. And so I had sped up and like knitted for so long trying to catch up on Clue 1 and Clue 2, and by the time Clue 3 rolled around, I expected it to be just as heavy, when I know that people were saying that it wasn't going to be. And then I finished it in like a day and a half or something, and then I had nothing else to do until the next week, and I just looked at it and I was fatigued is probably the best word. And even now, I did end up doing Clue 4 within the week. So Clue 4 came out on Thursday. I finished it by the next Thursday. And I looked at it and I was like, I fucking hate you. And like, it's not fair because all of the kind of suffering that I put myself through was exactly that, like self-inflicted. But I know, and especially as I saw it coming together, I was like, damn, this thing is ugly. I know that I probably would not have continued to knit it if I'd fallen behind. And that was why I was pushing myself so hard to be up to date. Because it's funny, because I always said that I was a process knitter, that I really enjoyed just knitting. But for this really, really changed my mind. Like, I don't know if it was, potentially it was some of the techniques, especially the Clue one. I really, really hated like the cast on bind off like everyone else did. But I have learned that having that carrot on the end of the stick is a huge motivator for me. In this instance, having to not knit on this anymore was actually the carrot on the stick as opposed to having the finished garment, which is a little bit sad. But just overall, I made a freaking ton of mistakes. And again, part of that was just because I didn't care. I just wanted to get it over and done with. There are definitely like heaps of tension issues because I've done a bunch of stuff wrong. My stitch count was all over the shop, especially at the wingtips. As you can see, that is not clean. That's not how that's supposed to look, and it actually looks like that on both sides, and I don't care. There is no way in heck that I'm going to go back and fix that. Whatever. This is going to end up like hanging on a wall. I am dreaming of my future Amy Palco inspired shawl wall, and this is going to definitely be part of it. As a lesson, I look at this and I think, oh my God, I persevered, even though I really didn't want to. An additional like positive side effect is that I was kind of not feeling knitting at the time. I was kind of really stuck on what to do next, and especially going into the hot season here in Australia, I was not really keen to like keep going with sweaters. And so if you have watched any of my previous videos recently, you'll know that I'm like in a big shawl mood, and this kind of pulled me out of that lack of motivation. I am very desperate now to make something that I enjoy because I hated this experience so much. I know it must be hard to listen to me and be like, if you hated it so much, why did you do it? And this is potentially, not potentially, definitely my biggest character flaw. I am the most, and I've said this a million times, the most type A person to exist, to a fault. I will work myself to the ground, even if, you know, I don't like the outcome, or even if I don't get anything out of it at the end. So long as I can say that I did something, I'll do it. Not great. But I think that that's going to have to factor really heavily into whether I do it again next year. That all said, knowing me and my type A personality, I'm probably going to get sucked in to the peer pressure again next year. But to be honest, I don't mind. It's kind of a nice palette cleanser, and I am like certain that if it is nice next year, I'm gonna be so upset. So I'm gonna give it one more go. Maybe you'll hear me complaining next year again and be like, you're such an idiot, just don't do it if you don't enjoy it. And I'm gonna be like, yeah, whatever. All of my negativity aside, one thing that I did learn was on Clue 3, trying to do the 1x1 cables, I was doing them very, very, very wrong in the first place. I think that the way that I was mounting the stitch, because I wasn't using a cable needle, was incorrect. I'll put an image up here to show what I was doing wrong. And the Australian Knitters Discord very kindly redirected me, and they ended up turning out fine, which is great. I really actually like the look of Clue 3, probably the only bit that I like, but it's also, I think, is the bit that doesn't make sense in the entire shawl. And the other thing that I learned is plan colours early, buy fast. I really waited because I thought that I would have the luxury of buying in person, like going to yarn stores, holding up colours next to each other, and then making the decision in person, and that didn't end up happening. On top of that, stuff was going so quickly because, you know, people are much more experienced than me at this, and I didn't know that that's what would happen. And so I did end up kind of settling for this kit. Blue is never a colour that I have knitted with before, nor do I like it on me, especially these two, and especially these two together. I'm getting very much jail vibes. I don't... initially I wanted to do something that was a little bit more neutral, a little bit more muted, low contrast. There are some really, really, really stunning versions. I'll put up a picture from a friend in the Discord up here. I think that her edition is really, really nice. And I think one of my favorites is actually 30 Flirty Fiber, who is a fellow Sydney girl who also has a podcast. So I'll leave a link down below. Check her out. She's real cute. But her color choices were so nice. And even though like I still think that the design is ugly, that's probably as close as it gets to like pleasing me aesthetically. So yeah, I think that like regardless of everything that I've said, I think that I went into this saying, okay, I'm going to go outside of my comfort zone and do something that I wouldn't do before. Even if I didn't like the product that I ended up with, at least now I know these are the things that I don't like. These are colors that I do not like together and colors that I don't like on me. Even though I kind of look at her now and hate her, I think that I will eventually look back and be like, all right, I'm fond of the experience. So yeah. So finally, this video is actually super duper late because it's actually been, I think like 3 weeks since I last recorded for this same video. We are moving, like I've said 50 million times, but actually we're moving next week. We came back from Queensland a couple of days ago, went up there, signed a lease for a house, came back down to Sydney. Now we're packing and we've got to be out of here in a week, and it's been a little bit crazy. So I'm going to slip, slap, slop this video together, and we might not see each other for a while, and certainly you will not see this angle ever again. I'm incredibly fond of this house. We've been living here for only 2 years, but actually my husband and I got married on this balcony in this backyard in the middle of COVID, literally a week before the second variant came out, and we were very, very, very fortunate that we were able to get all of our friends together to celebrate our marriage in this backyard. So that makes me really sad. I'm going to miss this place a lot. I'm going to miss Sydney a lot. I'm going to miss all of my friends and family, but I'm very excited to make new friends and new family in my new state. I very quickly went for a little yarn detour in Taringa. I went to Yarn Glorious Yarn, which I don't know if you guys have seen previous clips of me saying that the owner there, Sue, was incredibly kind to me and let me swap out some yarn because I didn't like the colour. And I was very fortunate to meet her in person while I was up there. So it was very exciting. I'm going to be frequenting her store a lot while I'm up there. Very excited to have like new local yarn stores and start to learn how to knit for a super hot climate. When we went up there, it was like anywhere between like 28 and 30 every day. For Americans, I think that's 80 to 86-ish, only to get even hotter as we move more into summer. So this is going to be the end of the knitting content. Thank you so much for being patient with me. If you haven't been able to tell, the YouTube algorithm is not kind to me, especially because I'm using, I think, a word that's not in English as my handle. So it would really mean a lot to me if you could share this video around with your friends, or if you have any mates who want knitting content that's a little bit different from the norm, please let them know that I'm here. It is really hard, and people don't talk about it, and I get a little bit like sad because the YouTubers will talk about it amongst themselves but not talk about it out in the open. And I think that it's fine to be a little bit vulnerable. Like, yes, the algorithm sucks, so let's just be honest about it, right? But anyway, yeah, the next time I see you, we're going to be in a whole new house, in a whole new state. I'm going to try and see if I can vlog a little bit of it. Also, I've got a really hectic week when we do move up. Sorry about the wind. I've got a really hectic week when we move up, which means that I'm not going to be able to do any complicated knitting. I have a 10-hour drive all the way up to Queensland, and then I'm flying back down for 2 days and then flying back up again. So I have a lot of travel ahead of me, but not a lot of brain power. So I am actually joining in on Madeline, who's Mad About You on YouTube. Link is going to be here. She's holding a half and half triangles wrap Cal, which I'm going to be starting a little bit early. So I think her start date was going to be New Year's, but I've got the time now, so I'm going to give it a go. Please check out her channel and feel free to join along. I think that her Instagram handle is also Mad About You, potentially with dots in between the words. It's up here. If you're interested, I took a little clip of us deconstructing our library, and I went through each one of the books, and that clip is going to be after this. But if you're not interested in books or anything like that, thank you so much for tuning in. I don't know when I'll see you next, but I hope I do soon. I really hope that you're having a great year. It's about to end. I hope that you get to spend the holiday season with loved ones and friends and good times and great knitting. Catch you later. Bye. So, if you don't know, we're actually moving to Queensland from Sydney in a few, potentially weeks. And so we're starting to clean up the house and we're taking down the bookshelves today. So I thought I would take the opportunity to kind of introduce you guys. I'm actually going to be giving a lot of these books to charity because there are other books from my childhood that I'm never going to read again. And also the moving cost interstate is obviously huge. So we're trying to reduce that as much as we can. Sad moment. But anyway, I'll give you guys a very super quick tour. Most of these books are mine. Some of these are my husband's. He started reading, I think, three-ish years ago, and got into the habit of buying a lot of books and then not reading them. So primary example of that on our first shelf is this cute little Tom Clancy collection. His father was really fond of these books, and so he bought them. We bought them at a charity event for like $2 each, which is really a steal. But he's never read them. And so here they are. The next shelf is my Murakami collection, and then we've got some classics, the good old Dracula, Great Expectations, some Bronte, Jane Austen, all of the classics. This is actually my favorite book of all time, Stoner, by John Williams. It's one of those books where, like, if you ask me what is it about, I can't tell you honestly, but it is my favorite book of all time. Moving on, we've got the Penguin Classics. Again, some of the standards, Lolita, On the Road, which I don't love, Perfume, High Fidelity, which Josh really loves, Sherlock Holmes, which is excellent. And then moving on, we've got our non-fiction. So these are basically all Josh's. See What You Made Me Do is an Australian non-fiction written by Jess Hill, who was a woman who used to work, I think, in the police force in some way. It talks about like sexual assault and how that travels through court, which is super interesting, very difficult read. What else have we got? Some more non-fiction. I reckon if you had a look at this, you could tell which were mine and which were Josh's. And then some more non-fiction in our little sports section. Moving back up, so that is all of our non-fiction down there. Moving up, this starts the fantasy sci-fi section, which is actually the majority of the bookshelf. Up here we have the sci-fi section. Be great to focus.
So we've got the 5th season, the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, which I've read the first one of and have not continued. That empty gap there is for Leviathan Wakes, which is the first book in the Expanse series. Some really good books. Sylvain Novelle is one of my favorites. Hated Annihilation with all my heart, but there it is. The copy of June that I have told myself I will read every year and have never picked up. A Harry Potter collection, which is one of those things where, like, yes, J.K. Rowling's a mad bitch, but we love her books, and we love these books at least. All of our other stuff's pretty shit. Hoping to pass these on to the children when/if we have children. Moving down, a box set of Game of Thrones that is so old that it used to not be blue. I don't know if you can see on the second book here, like, this is a desert. This used to be orange, but it's had so much sun exposure, which was a tough lesson for me, so it looks like that now. Don't know what we're going to do when the 8th book comes out and it doesn't match the rest of the series, but whatever. Wheel of Time. Really, really upset because most of these are actually secondhand except for book 1. I was meant to buy all of these secondhand. Like, we were going hunting around, like, charity shops and things trying to find these old editions. Now that the television series has come out, they've got really ugly covers and I'm really kicking myself that we didn't get more. But I'm halfway through The Great Hunt, which I stopped reading in, like, January. Magician classic, The Witcher box set. Also haven't read that. My bad. Joe Abercrombie, who's one of my favorites. Stephen Erickson, who is not one of my favorites. And we've got more Joe Abercrombie, again, my favorite. I'm up to Best Served Cold, which I'm really enjoying. Some Scott Lynch, which was really good. The Painted Man, which is Josh's favorite fantasy series so far, I think. Some more generic fantasy, Pat Rothfuss. And actually, before we get to the last 2 shelves, I'm going to move it back up here. So this is the middle shelf. This is the beginning of Josh's horror collection. Most of these, as you can see, are Stephen King, with some books that didn't fit anywhere. So this is the Stephen King collection. Would love to get these one day in, like, a solid theme instead of having them all higgledy-piggledy, but whatever. And there's a couple up there as well. Alexis Henderson's Year of the Witching. Bloody fantastic book. This came out, I think, 3 years ago. It was her debut novel. Is the first book in a series. I screamed at multiple points reading this. Bloody fantastic. Not super scary if you're worried about horror, but very much compelling. Very quick moving, super interesting, very feminist book. Loved it. What else have we got? Dracula. Southern Books Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires was very funny. Moving down, we have the ginormous book collection, along with some random shit, don't worry about that. Saga, which is the best comic of all time. Definitely recommend to read these if you haven't. Each one of these, so they went on hiatus for like 3 years or something, so this is their first lot of comics. These are like omnibuses of like the first couple of years, and these only go for about like, I think $80 each, and like there's a lot. Like, definitely bang for the buck. Strongly recommend. These are my Final Fantasy books, which I love so much, that Josh got for me, imported from Japan. My Brandon Sanderson collection. Oh, look at you. I love Brandon Sanderson, as does every fantasy nerd. There's a special surprise here in my edition of Warbreaker. If we flip through, we get to see that Brandon ever so kindly signed this for me at a convention that I saw him at, in which I was freaking out pretty bad. I got to the front of the line and I was so starstruck and so like amazed that he was right there in front of me that I kind of freaked him out a little bit. That's gonna go in later because I can't do that with one hand. Okay, just pretend that's not there. Some more fantasy, a couple of the more recent publications like R.F. Kuang's Poppy War, which I really liked, but the ending was absolute dog shite. We don't talk about Brent Weeks. Kings of the Wild's very good. Okay, and then before we get to the bottom two, going back up here is the rest of Josh's, like, this is the Josh section. So we've got a little bit of horror up here. The Passage series is a television series that's been adapted. Interview with a Vampire, which just got adapted. The Terror, which is Josh's favourite book, also has been adapted and is on Amazon Prime. Losing my breath. Some historic fiction in Connor Goulden. We have so many Connor Goulden books and Josh has never read one, which I'm not happy about, but anyway, I've read more Connor Goulden than he has. And then a couple of thrillers with the more recent edition of Rebecca, which I still haven't read, which I've mean to. Moving on to the YA fantasy section. So Scythe by Neil Shusterman is excellent. We've got some V. Schwab, Garth Nix, who I think is Australian, Susan Dennard, which I also think is Australian, and then Divergent and all that kind of thing. Marie Lou's Young Elites. These books here by Marissa Mayer were actually the books that got me back into reading after I had stopped as a kid. I absolutely sped through these books during my commute at my first corporate job, and so these are a couple that I don't think we're going to cull because they do mean a lot to me. I'm very, very fond of these books, even if perhaps the content is not up to my standards these days. Some tall Brandon Sanderson. This is his most recent sci-fi series. It's YA as well. Not really my favorite. I don't know why I have them in like the published size, like the big A4 size. I kind of hate it, but I'll probably keep them. I don't know. Illuminae, fantastic series. I'm not really the biggest fan of J. Christoph, but that series was really fun. Sarah J. Maas, who's going in the bin. I know a lot of people love her. She needs to have a little bit more respect for women, but whatever floats your boat, homie. Six of Crows, I loved. Some Brian McClellan. Jim Butcher's Dresden Files, which also probably needs a bit of a refresh. And then all of the single fantasy books, or the ones that we don't have like the series or anything for. Foundry Side, I liked, by Robert Jackson Bennett. Read the second book, it was okay. Have I read the third book? I don't know. But for some reason, these aren't in print in Sydney anywhere. I've been looking for them for years and haven't been able to find them. I think I actually bought this in LA or San Francisco. One of those. Alright, and now moving on to the bottom, which you might not be able to tell, but the bottom section is all of my like general fiction books in rainbow, top shelf being the standard like trade paperback sized books, and then the bottom being the taller, like, first publication books. I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but I will shout out the Mythos series by Stephen Fry. What a bloody fantastic series. If you like Greek mythology and you like Stephen Fry, get those on audiobook. He reads them out himself and they are freaking fantastic. Some honorable mentions would be Homegoing by Jassi, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Pachinko by Minjin Lee, which is also another favorite book of all time. Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell was amazing. Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, I know you definitely can't see that, is an amazing YA book, super funny, LGBT. What else? We've got Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall down there, Elena Ferrante, who I started reading My Brilliant Friend, and I really, really, really love her writing. I think that she's got a really, like, kind of almost dreamy vibe to her writing, which I really like. But at the time I wasn't really in the mood for literary fiction. I went on to read something sci-fi, so yeah. So yeah, that's it. Saying goodbye to, well, not goodbye to all of them, but to a lot of these amazing, amazing books. Husband will take these down today. Put them all in these boxes. Yeah. That's it. See ya.